Thank you so much. Our final paper, the use of digital technologies by the Egyptian regime to propagate anti-opposition disinformation and conspiracy theories. Ihsan, Ali, Shahram, and Galib, would you like to all present?
We will be hiding behind him.
Thank you, Ali. Our discussants are Katherine and Robert.
Thank you. I will try to keep the time limited to the 15 minutes. Use of digital technology in spreading pro-government conspiracy theories in Egypt. Egypt is a very interesting case in this regard. We all know that Egypt was one of the probably the first countries that digital technology led to overthrowing the government in 2011 in Arab Spring, and very fast and very hard. The government wasn't ready for this development back then. They didn't have any ability or strong tools to confront the opposition and the protest movement. That's why the government was overthrown very quickly and easily. After 2013, after the coup, the government learned the lesson, and they started to invest heavily in this area, in the technology aspect of it, and also in the human aspect of it, by employing a lot of employers, non-state actors, and investing in the state media and non-state media, making a big development in this regard. In this study, we observed dozens of social media accounts in different platforms: YouTube, Twitter, online TV, TikTok, Instagram, and others. And we observed hundreds of posts to track and to understand how conspiracy theory is made and formed, and how it gets spread through social media, and which technology the government is using, and how they are reaching to the people, and how the public audience, the ordinary people, are interacting with it. This was the general scope of the study. We focus on the post-Ukraine war to present a fresh version, a fresh view of the situation in Egypt. It was interesting that to see how the disinformation, the fake news, the conspiracy theories in Egypt is made for two very common sense purposes. First of all, for promoting for the government, and second, for demonizing the opposition. The photo here you can see, it's one of the very common ideas after pro-Ukraine war. We can see the civil candidate of the upcoming elections, who was removed, interestingly, during this paper when we've been working as it, he was removed from the race. Ahmed Tantawi. They are talking about Zelensky and Ahmed Tantawi to be the same version of the same conspiracy. They are Western puppets, and they are made to create chaos and disorder in the country. So if you want to go to the fate of Ukraine, vote to Ahmed Tantawi. Otherwise, stick to Sisi. Sisi is a better choice for you. We identified the three main conspiracy theories related to post-Ukraine period. First one was, and both with the two purpose, three of them with the both purpose of promoting for the government and demonizing the opposition. First of all was related to Egypt withdrawal from grains agreement, which happened in early this year. This was presented as a national wise and brave act by Sisi, and also as a part of intelligence cooperation between Russia and Egypt According to the narrative, Russian intelligence service provided secret information to Egypt that US is trying to use the grains crisis and the food crisis, the food security to create chaos in Egypt. And it's better for your benefit to withdraw from the agreement, and Sisi withdraw. And in return, Russia provided a good deal of selling grains to Egypt. We can see here also another caricature that's showing Sisi. He's a man of action, and he takes action for the benefit of the country. And related to the food crisis and the food security, he has a plan, he has a strategy. He's talking about the planting, and he's gaining the result from the planting, and he's providing the food to the nation. He's the trustworthy leader that can take the country to the right direction.
We should read it from right to left, right? Otherwise,
Yeah,
he's stealing the food and then there is nothing left.
Yeah, of course, not from that side.
Maybe that's the correct thing then, but I understand.
Yeah. And the second narrative was the conspiracy narrative of economic war on Egypt. And we all know that Egypt is under a great loan from Western banks, from the Federal Reserve and from the World Bank and other European and American financial institutions. And it's under pressure, and this impacting the country economically. So one of the methodology and strategy to deal with this situation is to say this is not the government problem, this is the Western problem that wanted to oppress you and wanted to oppress you and want to make chaos in your country. So please resist and continue and try to get over of this situation. This has nothing to do with the management, mismanagement of the country. And third one was the conspiracy theory of saying that West is trying to turn Egypt like Ukraine to create a new chaos in the region, using a very multiple layers conspiracy theories that US tried to do the same thing in Iraq, in Syria, in Libya. So see the result if you want to go to this result, and more recently in Ukraine, if you want to go to this result, so go to the same pathway, otherwise stick to your leaders and support your leaders. And interestingly, because these topics are all of them sensitive for the regime, the conspiracy theories is not adopted by the official media information outlets. It's all adopted by non-state actors who are affiliated with the state, which I will explain later on. That will take us to a new aspect of this paper, which is providing image of a friends and foods, where Russia is a friend, a trustworthy friend, and US is not a trustworthy party. And there is a huge literature and huge culture and huge history and background in the region to support this idea, because most of the colonialism in the region was made by Westerns, by Russia, Europeans, by American and Europeans, not by Russia. And we have the case of Israel, we have the case of Iraq, Syria, Libya. All of these can contribute and made it easy to say that they are the enemy and the other part is the friend. And as I already said, that it's mostly this kind of conspiracy theories is adopted by non-state actors who are affiliated with the state informally. And because Western governments are not that much caring about this kind of conspiracy, they are not like Russia and China. They take these kind of things very seriously. The Egyptian government can get over of it and not get any problem or issue with its Western partners. The other aspect of this paper is how the digital technology was used to spread the conspiracy theory. The Sisi government tried after 2003 to work in different areas. First of all, establish a lot of boots and fake accounts that works mostly for sharing, for reposting, for liking, for commenting general comments, and also made a great deal with young activists, journalists, activists, who some of them interestingly were from opposition background. The guy here, Ahmed Akoud, is one of the interesting case. Until 2015, he was caricaturist affiliated with the opposition, publishing caricatures, cartoons against Sisi, against the authoritarian regime in Egypt. He was arrested in 2015, and after the arrestment, a big shift happened, and he became pro-government actor. The policy of reward and punishment is very clear here. They reward many activists to bring them by giving them money or funds or space to act and work, or by punishing them and trying to stick them to a specific direction. In this cartoon, we can see that he's talking about this is on the anniversary of 11 September. He's talking about two common chaos maker in the country. First is chaos itself, and second is terrorism, and affiliating both of them to a conspiracy against Egypt. So down we can see al-Mu'amara ala Misr, conspiracy against Egypt, and the two fingers is like the two building of the 11th September. One of them is chaos, and the other one is terrorism, and the foreign conspiracies is trying to make these things to the country. The process of creating and splitting the conspiracy theory is also interesting. It seems to me when I tracked all of these accounts and got to the source of creating the stories, it seems to me there is some kind of think tank that they are sit and try to find what is matter for the public opinion and how to connect to the local issues, to the regional issues, and to the international issues, and then building a narrative based on that, the narrative with multiple layers that is connected to all these sides with multiple storyline to make it interesting for the audience. Otherwise, the conspiracy theory won't be that much interesting. If you just say that the US is making something in the country, doesn't make sense. You have to connect it to Israel, connect it to Saudi, connect it to Turkey and Qatar, to Muslim Brotherhood, and adding more lines to it to make it more interesting for your audience. That's why we can see that for spreading through digital technology, they usually use platforms that provide you with opportunity of publishing more longer content, like YouTube, like Facebook. Most of the accounts are active in these two platforms. Twitter, TikTok are used as well, but mostly for just grabbing as a bridging, as a grabbing the audience and taking them to the main account, which is the YouTube account or the Facebook account. And finally, we have the boosting and the resharing and the reposting, which is mostly done by bots and shows that there is a big interaction. And when ordinary people come and see a post with thousands, sometimes 10,000 or 100,000 of likes and interactions, they become very interested to listen to it, and that will make more and more audience. In terms of conclusion, the main finding was that there is a increasing conspiracy theory in Egypt, especially after 2003. And the digital technology provided a good opportunity and environment for the Egyptian regime to create and spread this conspiracy theory. The geopolitical conflict, particularly after the US invasion in the region in Iraq, Syria, and Libya, and after Ukraine as well, provided a good also environment to make very interesting conspiracy theories, connected them to these all topics, and make people continue listening to you. Finally, we can see that the conspiracy theory lines have been evolved very rapidly and very more complicated, more complex comparing to the past, to try to keep the public audience to you. And that take us to a very big challenge for the civil movement in Egypt, which was already under suppression of the government. So from one side, they are getting blocked from work by prisoning or by other kind of limitation and restriction. But from the other side, the government is taking their tools and their space for work. So they don't have any other space to work. They don't have this ability of make these kind of interesting stories. And as Professor Shahram already said, that usually lies and fake news are more grabbing attention of the audience and is more interesting than the true news. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ali and team. Our discussants are Katherine and Robert. I'd invite Katherine if you've got some comments first, and then Robert.
So I just wanted to say I really enjoyed reading your paper. So I read all of it yesterday, and it was really great just to learn something new about conspiracy theories in a context that I hadn't really considered before. And I think I found particularly interesting, like the conspiracy theories about the United States in an Egyptian context, particularly interesting, because I guess my question would be like, how does the Egyptian media ecosystem sort of balance like the amount of aid that is received from the US and these conspiracy theories, or is it just not best? So that's something I'd love to read about. I guess so my comments are largely related to the document rather than the presentation. Like the presentation was awesome. But I guess my main comments, relate to the scope, as the current paper is quite like long, and there's quite a, not which isn't the problem, but I think there's a really wide array of data being utilized. So like part A and part B of the paper do feel like they could be a little bit more interwoven. And for example, there's things that I think would be like maybe even, I'm sure you've thought of this, maybe like a great like spin-off paper. Like, for example, you spoke with interviewees, but they were only quoted like once or twice. And I'd love to hear more, because I think that would be like a really rich analysis. And then, for example, in part B of the paper, there's sort of reference to like hundreds of comments related to pro-government conspiracy theories being analysed. And I'd really like to see some of that quantitative analysis, and also consider, there's pro-government comments, but is there any sort of comments on social media that are anti-government or refuting these conspiracy theories? Is something that I would really like to read about as well. And a question that I had while reading that might be interesting to address or just touch on is how the moderations of platforms has influenced the proliferation of conspiracy theories related to the Egyptian government, like if at all. Because like in my own work, like Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitter before Elon Musk bought it, were generally like pretty on top of moderating conspiracy theories. So I'm just interested to see if that maybe differs in different nations, and what's considered, like, I don't know if there's more resources to moderate in different environments. The idea of sharp power is also referred to, and I'd love to hear more like articulation about this in relation to the Egyptian conspiracy theories. And you talked about bots as well in the presentation just now. I'd be really interested to see what sort of frameworks and characteristics, like what do you consider bot-like characteristics, and what, what's the threshold for an account to be considered a bot? And yeah, just a little bit more of the quantitative stuff I would be interested in as well. But overall, I really, really enjoyed reading your work. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Katherine. I appreciate this. Are you happy for us to go to our other discussant and then have a reply afterwards?
Yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. Robert, I wonder if we could have your comments, please.
Oh, for sure. yeah, along the lines of what Kate's kind of already touched on, I guess the draft in its current state does cover a lot of ground, and that sometimes obscures some of the key points that are being made. I do enjoy the fact that you've identified 3 conspiracy theories as being key to this. It'd be interesting to have the methodology fleshed out a bit to kind of understand where and how those conspiracy theories were kind of developed or pulled out of the data that you see. I guess they're kind of obvious in some respects, given the geopolitical kind of history of the region, the current kind of geopolitical history of the region, that those things seem to have, as mentioned, I guess, do seem to have long histories within the discourse around kind of the way that Egypt is situated in that geopolitical terrain. Yeah, so it'd be nice to see that the draft cut down and be a bit more concise on some of those things, like state the idea as up front. I think in some respects, draft tends to bury the lead a bit, but that's probably just a structural issue. I know drafts are about getting ideas down on paper, so that's not a bad thing. I really do like the idea of like focusing on those three main conspiracy theories as a thread and as a structure to follow through all of those kind of ideas about how it's being used, how this kind of like digital medium is being used to help out with that. I guess I'm not sure whether it's relevant or whether it's within the scope of the paper, but it'd be interesting to see some commentary on what's not digital media. I guess like what does this sort of like thing contrast with? Like how else are people disseminating these kind of ideas away from digital media? I know it's probably a bit out of scope, but it'd be interesting to kind of find out whether there's been this is a continuation. Sorry, I guess it's sort of semi-formed in my head. Whether this is a continuation of things that were previously not digital, or whether the digital part the digital media part of it has changed or allowed changes to happen in the discourses, I think is kind of where that idea was going. And that's probably it. Thanks.
Brilliant. Thank you, Robert. Thank you, Katherine, so much for your comments. Invite Ihsan or Shahram or Ali.
Thank you so much. The comments are very useful. I made some notes and we're going to use them in the final draft for sure. I just need to respond to the comment of the issue of Egyptian government with receiving aid from Western allies. I already discussed that in the part of friends and foes. And that's exactly the reason that Egyptian government is not adopting these conspiracy theories officially, but at the same time, the reason that they are going toward this direction, they want to make something interesting for the public. The popular enemy in Egypt and in the region is the West, is not East, is not China, is not Russia. So the fact it doesn't matter here. What is matter here is what can I sell to my audience? My audience like to see US and Europe and the Westerns as a bad party, and they like Russia. Putin is a strong figure and he's a national figure. He's trustworthy, and that's why they are going toward this direction, not for the reason that they really have some kind of connection with that side against the other side. Thank you.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for the comments. And yeah, in the future direction of this chapter, we're gonna start and build upon the 3 stories, the 3 theories, the recent ones, and the idea is to connect it to previous theories, conspiracy theories, and that go to Arab Spring, the Muslim Brotherhood, and then the Sisi's rule, and then even before that to the history of colonialism, because this is all of these conspiracy theories, they happen in this cultural historical context of Western colonialism and the aftermath of this colonialism. And in every one of these theories, there are certain cultural references, historical references to colonial period, and then the Muslim Brotherhood rule, and then the Arab Spring events, etc. So the chapter will be connecting to them as well. And a very good point, interesting point about the continuation of pre-digital things, pre-digital versus the digital. That is really an interesting point that we are working on, and I can definitely understand that, see that that's an interesting thing to say, because conspiracy theories, I mean, they have always been widespread, not always, not sound like Bernard Lewis, but widely, let's say, in the modern period, widespread in the Middle East, right? So it's not a new invention that people suddenly on Twitter or TikTok invented conspiracy theories. But what's the difference, if there is any? That's definitely worth exploring. Thank you so much.
Can I just add something? As Middle Easterners, we always thought that Middle East was rife with conspiracy theories. Everything was a conspiracy.
Yeah.
There's always a hidden agenda. And then we watched what happened with COVID and conspiracy theories about COVID and vaccines in Australia and elsewhere. So I think human nature likes to think about a hidden agenda in anything. Right, I'm going to stop talking.
Ihsan. All right, thank you. May I open it to the floor? Does anyone have questions or comments?
I have a question. Yeah, following Ali and Cole, the paper just then, I wondered if you have explored from the three conspiracies that you laid out there, if you've explored if there is any fourth one just with the current conflict in Palestine. Is there are these conspiracies having an effect on Israel, on the response from Egypt, or the non-response from Egypt, perhaps I should say? Or is there maybe a fourth conspiracy that has emerged in the recent month and so?
Yeah, thank you so much. It's a great question. It's exactly came to my mind a few nights ago when I was just surfing the Twitter. I came across a few posts, and until yesterday I was gathering some other posts as well. And probably we should add it to the piece as well. There are two opposing narratives here. One narrative is the anti-Sisi narrative, which making Sisi as an ally with Netanyahu and trying to push Palestinians inside Gaza and get them to the death and to the massive killing and etc. And the other line is no, Sisi is a national Arab hero who is standing against Netanyahu request to open Sinai for Gazanians to come across there, and he's standing against Western pressures. Yesterday, just one of the very famous pro-government media actors was calling Egyptians, if you want to help Palestinians, please vote to Sisi. The only way to help Palestine is to vote for Sisi. This is very interesting line that we should, I think, for sure add it to the paper.
Thank you for your question. Anyone else? Comments? Because one of the issues with conspiracy theories is how do we unpack them with the situation of deepfakes, for example, that are getting easier to create, perhaps. And most of us, our papers coming up, we're looking at text-based forms on social media also. Is anyone, might consider, the use of, image nets, for example, to unpack some of the images that we're looking at as well. And what that means, the visual images that you've got are terrific, but who's doing the coding for what these are, for example, what bias is embedded in the system from the get-go, especially if we're using young people to do some of this analytical or to code the algorithms. So we might have an interesting book coming up in, say, 5 years' time.
So it's a great idea.
Thanks, everyone. Hope that feedback is valuable. Appreciate that. We are early,